Hey to all my garden nerds. Super niche video today, super niche topic. Um, I actually, I decided that, um, I actually decided that I'm gonna do this video after thinking about it for a second. But basically, I'm trying to find a good place to put this thing. But basically, the situation is this. Let's see. There we go. That's my kid's playtime. So the situation is this. I I pruned an old rose bush of mine. She is about maybe 17, 18 years old. Quite an old lady now for a rose bush, in my opinion. And I pruned her well, very well. For 17 years, she hadn't been pruned, and then she was pruned intensely. Some people even were debating whether she'd come back or not. But she did come back. She came back in full force. Now, as she's rising out of the ground, as this new bush is rising, there's an incredibly old stem. All the other ones are newer, but there's this old grandpa for the first stem that's still alive, right? The other ones are all gone. The first one that's still alive. And it's not too tall now, and I was wondering, is it going to produce any additional stems and roses in the future? Is anything going to grow out of this stem, or is this going to be a dead stem that I'll have to end up cutting? Well, it did grow. At least two items grew out of that stem, and in an effort to preserve the capability of those items to seeing light, I wanted to make sure that those items got a ton of light. There's a helicopter flying behind me, so sorry if there's noise. But I really wanted to make sure that that big grandma stem, that anything coming out of there got light. That was incredibly important to me. So I did that. I did that with some old twine I had. I don't know what it's made out of. It's some kind of organic fabric. I think it's hemp, but probably not hemp. Some kind of twine that's decomposable. So you don't want to do plastics. You don't want to do metals. You don't want to do something that's going to be around for a long time. You obviously are going to want to cut it at some point, what I'm about to show you, the string, but you want to make sure you do something that even if you don't cut it, it could still decompose, right? Because it's the natural environment you're going into, and you just want to be careful and well thought out. Don't get anxious and overwhelmed by it if you're not used to touching roses a lot. Kind of keep a calm approach and realize that you yourself are going to be able to understand what this thing is going to need. It's not rocket science. Your visual sense is going to give you all the info you need, and you're going to be able to make good decisions about what to do with it, right? I had a lot of anxiety when I pruned that rose, right? Am I pruning it the right way? Am I going too aggressive? But I did it. I did what I thought was right. And then with this, I'm not an expert in roses. I'm not an expert in flowers. But with this kind of adjustment that I made to make sure that things are growing the way I want them to be growing, for this ancient rose, not really an ancient rose, for this old rose, for this adjustment, I had confidence in myself because, I don't know, I just trust in my ability to be able to do right by this rose. It's like our pet, right? So don't be scared of pruning the rose. Don't be scared of actively taking measures to have the rose do what you want it to do. So let's take a look at the rose here. So flipping the camera, here's the rose. There we go. That's the rose bush. Now, these are rose bushes that I just planted recently. Look how small these are. So up close and small, comparatively. When we get to that same distance with this rose, look how tall it is. Look how tall and massive and beautiful this is. And it's a very old rose. Now, this is the ancient part. This is the old guy that I wanted to preserve, as you could see here. See, it's big, intense stem, right? And we've got two things coming out of here. We've got one piece here coming out of here, right? Let's see if I can get to it. One piece coming out of there. One piece right there. Coming out right there. Right there. Right here. Right here. And then the other one is coming out right there. Right here, as you can see. Right here. And then it's growing up. Now, what I wanted to do is I wanted to make sure anything coming out of here, all these items are gonna have a lot of light. So let me back up here. So I wanted to make sure that that stem, that one right there, that big one, that things coming out of there had a lot of light. So what I did was I took this one, right? I took this stem, and you could see that that stem is now kind of not going straight up anymore. It was going straight up, but you could see that it's kind of tilted toward the left a little bit, and then it begins curving up at the top again, back towards the right. The way I did that was I took some twine, some simple twine. You can see how the fabric of that twine is like this. And I just tied it around here. There we go. I tied it around that one, and I put it all the way through. And I tied around that one, pulling this that way. Now, I made sure to do it below the leaves, right? Not above the leaves, not to mess those up. That's one thing I did. And then the other thing I did was, for this one, that's coming out of this big grandma stem, I didn't want it to go towards this wall, as you could see, right? I didn't want it to go towards that wall. I wanted it to continue out this way, towards me, towards the sun. And so I put another one of these strings, connecting that to this, just very lightly, connecting it and making sure it doesn't go. So that's one method, right? Let's remember that that's one method, which I used twice here. I used it once on this curving one, right? You could see right there, that curving one. Right there is where I put it. And then I used it with that one to bring it here. What another thing I did was I have this kind of, it doesn't really matter what you have, but I have this tamper, and I just put it gently right there, making really sure not to touch any of the gentle, like, red growth, right? So the red growth is very new. Green growth is a little bit more robust and less fragile, and brown growth, like the actual brown woody growth, that's strong. Anywhere you see green, that's pretty okay. We're getting a little bit stronger. But where you see red, like that red stem, that's super fragile, brand new growth, baby growth. So you got to be really careful with that. But what I did was I simply put that tamper down. I put it at an angle, doesn't matter. And I'm definitely not touching the main stem. I'm allowing some of the leaves to touch, but I'm definitely not touching the main stem. And all I want to do is give this rose a hint that there's going to be something there. I want to give that hint before it reaches that stucco wall, right? Before. So just a few inches before, I'm giving another hint. Instead of waiting for the wall to give the hint, where it's not really a hint anymore, right? I'm giving the hint early on. I'm giving it just a few inches early on, a very light, gentle hint. So the leaves are going to feel that wood, and they're going to feel some presence there, and they're going to just communicate a little bit with the overall rose, and it's going to just make it a little bit less likely to go that way. I think quite a bit less likely, actually, to go towards the wall now. Now, with that string, very gently, this is incredibly gently, and with that that item, I think we're quite a bit less likely to go to the wall. So that's two techniques to kind of manipulate where the stems go. And overall, I just use my brains. But if you could see here, you have a pretty intense rose bush here, but you have quite a bit of space that I've given it. I've given quite a lot of accommodation to this big grandmother stem, versus the overall rose, which I'm kind of letting it grow out generally, right? I'm letting this rose grow out generally. And obviously I'm protecting it on the bottom, and I've planted some grass, and I've protected it with rocks. I've done some work on this area. I've also built this, I built these mounds, and I've planted grass. And I've also, built this kind of bullseye for different kind of sport, but still wrapping that up. Got to do some cutting on that and wrap that up. But so that's a rose bush, and from this angle you could see. So pay attention to that right one. Let's see, this one right here, this one right here, this one. Do you see how it's turning at an angle? How it's kind of turning inward that way, and then at the top it goes back. That's just one piece of string that did that. So be very gentle, be very careful, but don't be scared.